I was standing outside the courthouse watching my brother step through those heavy oak doors with a smile I had not seen in years. The kind of smile that comes when someone thinks they have won. 2 years ago, Gregory told everyone I died in an accident halfway across the world. He held a memorial service. He posted tributes online. He cried in front of our family friends. But here is the thing. I was not dead. I was very much alive. And today was the day he was supposed to receive every last cent of our parents' inheritance. The day the trust fund would release $6.5 million into his account. He thought he had gotten away with it. He had no idea I was standing right behind him. Before I tell you how my own brother erased me from existence, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe, because this story proves that sometimes the dead do not stay buried. Now let me take you back to where this nightmare began. Our parents died 3 years before all of this started. Car accident on Interstate 5 during a winter storm. One moment they were driving home from a weekend trip to the coast, the next moment they were gone. They left behind something most people only dream about. A medical equipment manufacturing company worth about $4.5 million. The family house, a beautiful Craftsman in the suburbs, valued at $800,000. Investment funds totaling $1.2 million. Altogether, the estate was worth roughly $6.5 million. Their will was crystal clear. Everything split 50-50 between Gregory and me. But there was a catch. I had to wait until I turned 28 to receive my half. I was 25 when they passed. My parents worried I was too young, not mature enough to handle that kind of money. So they set up a trust fund managed by our family attorney, a man named Walter, who had known us since we were kids. Gregory was already 33. He could have received his portion immediately, but the trust stipulated that distribution would happen simultaneously when I reached the required age. 3 years felt like forever back then. I had no idea how long those years would actually become. Gregory and I used to be close, really close. When we were kids, he was the kind of older brother everyone wants. He taught me how to shoot hoops in our driveway, spent hours showing me the proper form until my wrists ached. When bullies gave me trouble in middle school, Gregory walked me to class for 2 weeks straight until they backed off. I remember this one summer when I was 12 and he was 17. We went camping in Montana with our dad. Gregory taught me how to fly fish in a cold river that ran through the mountains. He was patient when I tangled the line laughing instead of getting frustrated. Those were good days, simple days. Everything changed after Mom and Dad died. At first, I thought it was just grief. Gregory started asking questions about the will, about the trust, about when exactly I would turn 28. He would say things like, 3 years is a long time to wait. With this edge in his voice I had never heard before. I found out later he had debts, gambling debts specifically. He had been betting on sports, playing poker and underground games around Seattle. His startup investment, some tech company that promised to revolutionize online payment systems, collapsed and took $60,000 of his savings with it. He needed money. Bad. But I trusted him. He was my brother. I thought he was just stressed, just struggling with the same grief I was carrying. When he would call me late at night, asking about the trust details, I would answer his questions. When he said, "We need that money now, not in 3 years," I thought he meant we, as in both of us, as in our shared loss. My life before everything fell apart was pretty ordinary. I worked as a software engineer for a small tech company in Seattle. Nothing fancy. I wrote code, attended meetings, grabbed lunch with coworkers at the Thai place down the street. I had been dating Diana for 2 years by that point. She taught 3rd grade at an elementary school in Ballard. We rented an apartment together, a 1-bedroom with a view of the Space Needle, if you leaned out the window at just the right angle. Our weekends followed a comfortable pattern. Saturday morning hikes in the Cascades. Sunday brunch at different restaurants, working our way through a list we kept on our fridge. We talked about getting engaged, about maybe buying a house with my inheritance, about building something permanent. I called Gregory every week, trying to maintain the relationship we used to have. He rarely answered. When he did, he always seemed distracted, busy with something he could not quite explain. I felt something shifting between us, but pushed the feeling down. Blood is blood right. Family is supposed to be forever. 6 months before my 28th birthday, I made a decision. I asked my boss for a sabbatical. 6 months off to travel Southeast Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia. Places I had always wanted to see, but never had the time. Diana could not come because of her teaching contract, but she supported the idea. She said I should go, should have an adventure before settling into the responsibilities that come with serious money. I spent weeks planning every detail. Routes, budgets, hostel reservations. I was so excited I could barely sleep. When I told Gregory about the trip, his response was strange. He went quiet for a moment on the phone, then said, "That is perfect timing. I mean, good for you." The pause bothered me the way his voice changed mid-sentence, but I ignored it. I was too caught up in planning and the excitement of leaving. I promised Diana I would video call every week, that I would send pictures constantly. I promised Gregory I would stay safe, that I would be back in plenty of time for my birthday and the inheritance distribution. I left in February, 9 months before I would turn 28. 9 months that were supposed to be filled with adventure and freedom. I had no idea I was walking straight into my brother's plan. The first month in Thailand was everything I hoped it would be. I started in Bangkok, overwhelmed by the noise and heat and endless energy of the city. Then I took a bus north to Chiang Mai, a smaller city surrounded by mountains and temples. I stayed in hostels, met other backpackers from Germany and Australia and Brazil. We would sit on rooftop bars talking about where we had been and where we were going next. I sent Diana photos of street food and sunset views. I called Gregory twice, left voicemails both times. He texted back saying he was swamped with work. I bought souvenirs. A silk scarf for Diana. A hand-carved wooden elephant for Gregory, even though he probably would not appreciate it. Everything changed in week 5. I signed up for a 3-day trekking tour in the mountains near the Myanmar border. A small group, 6 tourists, 2 local guides. The trail wound through dense jungle, past waterfalls and tiny villages, where children waved from wooden houses built on stilts. On the second day, a storm rolled in faster than anyone expected. The sky turned black in minutes. Rain came down so hard it felt like standing under a waterfall. The trail turned to mud. I was walking along a narrow ridge when my foot slipped. Just like that. One moment I was upright, the next I was sliding, tumbling down a steep slope covered in wet leaves and loose rocks. I remember the impact of hitting the ground. Then nothing. When I woke up 4 days later, I was in a small room with bamboo walls and a dirt floor. An elderly woman was pressing a cool cloth against my forehead, speaking in a language I did not understand. My left leg was wrapped in rough bandages, my head pounding with the worst pain I had ever felt. Broken leg, concussion, cuts and bruises everywhere. My phone was destroyed, shattered into pieces that I would find later in my backpack. My passport and wallet thankfully had been in a waterproof pouch. They survived. The village where I ended up was tiny. Maybe 40 people. No cell service, no internet, no way to contact anyone. The nearest town with phones and electricity was 50 miles away, through jungle trails that were barely passable even in good weather. A young woman named Nira, maybe 20 years old, spoke a little English. She explained that a farmer found me at the bottom of the slope, unconscious and bleeding. He carried me here. The village had no doctor, just traditional medicine and hope. They set my leg using splints made from bamboo. They treated my cuts with herbs that stung but kept infection away. They fed me rice and vegetables and asked for nothing in return. I stayed in that village for 3 weeks. At first, I was too injured to move. Even sitting up made me dizzy. My leg throbbed constantly. But slowly, day by day, I got stronger. I helped where I could, sorting vegetables, weaving baskets with the older women who laughed at my clumsy attempts. The language barrier was massive, but Nira helped translate the basics. I told her I needed to contact my family that people would be worried. She said the village jeep went to town once a month. I had just missed it. I would have to wait. What choice did I have? So I waited. I learned to slow down to exist without constant connectivity, without the hum of modern life. The villagers treated me like family. They shared what little they had. I told myself Diana and Gregory would be worried, but I also told myself the tour company would have reported me missing, that authorities would be looking, that everything would be sorted out once I got to town. After 3 weeks, my leg had healed enough to walk with a bamboo cane. The swelling in my head went down. I could think clearly again. When the jeep was ready to make its monthly trip to the nearest town, I went with Nira. The drive took 4 hours bouncing along dirt roads that barely deserved the name. When we finally reached town, a dusty little place with a few shops and a police station, I went straight to an internet cafe. I borrowed a phone. My hands were shaking as I dialed Diana. The number did not work. Disconnected. I tried Gregory. His number rang, but no one answered. Confused, I logged into Facebook using the cafe computer. That is when my world stopped making sense. My profile page was filled with condolence messages from 6 weeks ago. I scrolled, not understanding what I was seeing. Friends from college saying, "Rest in peace, brother." Coworkers writing, "You will be missed." Then I saw Gregory's post from 5 weeks earlier. The words burned into my brain. "It is with deepest sorrow that I announce my brother Charles passed away in a tragic accident in Thailand. We are working with authorities to bring him home. Please respect our privacy during this difficult time." Hundreds of comments. Hundreds of people mourning me. Diana had her own post, a picture of us from last Christmas. Her words about how much she loved me, how she could not believe I was gone. I sat in that internet cafe staring at the screen, feeling like I was falling all over again. None of this made sense. I was not dead. I was sitting right here. How could Gregory think I was dead? How could he not know I was alive? I checked my messages. Nothing from Gregory after my accident asking if I was okay. Nothing from anyone trying to find me. It was like they had all accepted my death immediately, without question. That is when the first cold finger of doubt touched my spine. I called the United States Embassy in Bangkok. The woman who answered listened to me explain who I was. There was a long silence. Then she said they had a death certificate on file for Charles William Morrison, filed by local Thai police based on a report from my family, my brother specifically. The woman asked me to prove I was who I claimed to be. It took 2 days of emails and scanned documents and phone calls, 2 days of sitting in a cheap hotel room in that town, my mind spinning. The accident was real. I almost died. But Gregory had taken that real accident and turned it into something else. He declared me dead. On purpose. I stayed in Bangkok for 2 more weeks, living in a hostel that cost $8 a night. I used a borrowed laptop to dig deeper. What I found made my blood run cold. Gregory had filed paperwork with the probate court claiming I died on March 15th. He hired a lawyer to expedite the death declaration. Under the trust rules, if one heir died, the survivor inherited everything. All $6.5 million. The court documents showed a timeline. 2 years from the date of declared death, assuming no challenges, Gregory would receive full control of the estate. I did the math. 2 years from March 15th. That was exactly my 28th birthday. September 23rd. 7 months away from when I was sitting in that hostel room reading legal documents that erased my existence. I video called Diana. When her face appeared on the screen and she saw me, she screamed. Actually screamed. Then she started crying so hard she could not speak for 5 minutes. When she finally calmed down, she told me everything. Gregory had shown her a death certificate, an official-looking document from Thai authorities. He organized a small memorial service at a funeral home, played a slideshow of photos from my childhood, cried real tears. Diana said she wanted to talk to Thai police directly to understand what happened, but Gregory told her he had already handled everything, that it would be too painful for her to hear the details. In her grief, she believed him. She asked me the question that had been haunting me for days. Why did he not look harder for you? Why did he accept it so fast? I did not have an answer then, but I was starting to understand. Gregory never wanted to find me. He wanted me gone. I made a decision sitting in that hostel room with Bangkok traffic roaring outside my window. I would not announce I was alive. Not yet. If Gregory knew I survived, he might run, might hide assets, might create a new plan. I needed proof of what he did. I needed to catch him in the act of taking what was not his. I needed witnesses. I needed it to be undeniable. Diana agreed to keep my survival secret. It killed her to lie to friends who asked about me, but she understood. I contacted Walter, our family attorney. He was retired but still monitored the trust as a personal favor to my parents' memory. When I called him, he went silent for so long I thought the connection dropped. Then he said, "Charles," in a voice full of shock and relief. I told him everything. He said Gregory had been pushing him hard to process the paperwork faster, calling every few weeks, asking about timelines. Walter had found it odd, but had no legal grounds to refuse. Together, we made a plan. I would return to the United States but stay hidden. Walter would ensure the final transfer hearing happened in court not just through paperwork. He would arrange for a judge to be present, everything official and documented. I would appear at the exact moment Gregory thought he had won. I spent 3 more months in Southeast Asia, moving between Vietnam and Cambodia, working remotely for a web development client I found online. I needed time for my leg to fully heal, for the limp to disappear, for me to look normal again. I needed time to prepare mentally for what was coming. In month 8 after my accident, I flew back to Seattle. I rented a studio apartment in a neighborhood I never frequented, using a temporary identity Walter helped arrange. I avoided everywhere I used to go. No coffee shop I liked, no hiking trails, no grocery store near my old place. Diana visited after dark, always careful. We would sit in my tiny apartment, and she would tell me about her day, about the students in her class, about anything except the fact that everyone we knew thought I was dead. It felt like being a ghost. I hired a private investigator. His name was Raymond, a former police detective in his 50s with gray hair and suspicious eyes. I paid him $5,000 to dig into Gregory's life. What Raymond found confirmed everything I feared. Gregory owed $400,000 to gambling operations in Las Vegas. The kind of operations that do not accept, "I will pay you later." He had sold his car, his furniture, anything of value. The debt collectors were threatening worse. Raymond found emails between Gregory and his lawyer, where Gregory wrote things like, "We need to expedite this process," and "I need that money as soon as legally possible." The desperation bled through every message. But the worst discovery came a week later. Raymond traced a $10,000 wire transfer from Gregory to a man in Bangkok, a fixer, someone who helps people with paperwork problems for the right price. Raymond found email exchanges. Gregory had paid this man to create a fake death certificate, to bribe local officials, to make my death look real on paper. The emails were dated 3 days after my actual accident. Gregory had not waited to see if I was really dead. The moment he heard I was missing in a remote area with bad weather, he paid someone to make it permanent. He did not try to find me. He tried to bury me. I sat in my dark apartment reading those emails on Raymond's laptop. Diana held my hand. I felt something break inside my chest. This was not a mistake, not a misunderstanding born from grief and bad information. This was murder. On paper with a paper trail, but murder all the same. My brother had killed me with money and lies and forged signatures, and in 7 weeks he would be rewarded for it. September 23rd arrived cold and gray. Seattle autumn at its most dramatic. I woke up at 6 a.m. in my studio apartment, my 28th birthday, 2 years to the day since Gregory told the world I died. I put on jeans and a plain button-up shirt. I shaved carefully. I wanted to look normal, healthy, unmistakably alive. Diana met me for coffee at a place far from downtown. She held both my hands across the table and said, "Are you ready?" I told her I had been ready for months. That was not quite true. I was terrified, not of Gregory, of what this would do to the last piece of family I had left. The hearing was scheduled for 10 a.m. at the King County Courthouse. Walter had arranged everything. The presiding judge was Honor Diane Foster, a woman in her 60s known for running a tight courtroom. The room itself was small, wood paneling, a high bench for the judge, a table for the proceedings. Gregory arrived at 9:45, wearing an expensive charcoal suit I did not recognize. He must have bought it for this occasion. His lawyer walked beside him, a thin man in wire glasses who carried a leather briefcase like it contained gold. Walter was already there, representing the trust. A court reporter sat ready. Everything official. Everything documented. The hearing started exactly at 10. Judge Foster read through the preliminary documents. Death certificate of Charles William Morrison, dated March 15th, 2 years prior. Confirmation that the mandatory waiting period had elapsed. Verification that all legal requirements were met. She looked at Gregory. "Mr. Morrison, you understand you are about to receive full control of your parents' estate valued at approximately $6.5 million. Gregory nodded. His voice was steady when he said, "Yes, Your Honor." She slid papers across the bench. "Please sign here, here, and here." Gregory signed. His hand did not shake. He smiled slightly. Judge Foster picked up her stamp to finalize the transfer. That is when I opened the courtroom door. Every head turned. The room went silent, in a way that felt physical. I walked down the center aisle, my footsteps loud on the tile floor. Gregory stood up so fast his chair scraped backward. His face went from confident to confused, to pale white in about 3 seconds. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I stopped 10 feet from him. "Oh, sorry I'm late. Traffic was terrible." Gregory finally found his voice. You are... how?" Each word came out separate, like he was learning to speak. I kept my tone calm, conversational. "How am I alive?" "That is a good question, Gregory. Maybe you should ask the man you paid in Bangkok to fake my death certificate." I pulled a thick manila envelope from inside my jacket. Everything Raymond found. Everything Walter helped me organize. Bank transfers, emails, the name and contact information for the fixer in Bangkok, statements from the United States Embassy confirming I was very much alive, medical records from my actual treatment in Thailand, a sworn statement from Neera and the village chief about finding me and caring for me. I handed the envelope to Judge Foster. She opened it and started reading. Her expression changed from curious to serious to outright angry. The silence stretched. I could hear Gregory breathing. His lawyer had gone completely still. Finally, Judge Foster looked up. "Mr. Gregory Morrison, These documents suggest you knowingly filed false information with this court, that you paid for fraudulent documents, that you declared your brother dead while knowing he might be alive." Her voice could have cut glass. Gregory tried to salvage something. "This is a misunderstanding. I thought he was dead. The police told me." I interrupted him. "You paid someone to tell you that. You never tried to find me. You just saw an opportunity." Gregory turned to look at me. For a moment I saw something in his eyes. Maybe regret. Maybe just fear of consequences. He said, "I am your brother. I needed that money. You do not understand." I let the silence sit for a beat. Then I said, "You are right. I do not understand how someone could kill their own brother on paper for money. But I do understand you are not my brother anymore, not in any way that matters." Judge Foster called for bailiffs. 2 officers entered the courtroom. She ordered Gregory detained pending criminal investigation. Fraud, forgery, bribery of foreign officials, attempted theft. The charges would come later, formal and numerous, but right now he was being arrested. The bailiffs read him his rights. Gregory did not resist. As they put handcuffs on him, he looked back at me one more time. His eyes were red. He said, "We were supposed to split it anyway. Why does it matter?" I did not answer. There was nothing to say to that. They let him out of the courtroom. His fancy lawyer followed without a word. Walter came over and put his hand on my shoulder. He said, "Your parents would be proud of how you handled this." I was not sure about that, but I nodded anyway. A few people in the courtroom clapped. Court employees who had heard about the case. Small applause in a nearly empty room. It should have felt triumphant. Mostly it just felt sad. The next several weeks were a bureaucratic nightmare. Forms to reestablish my legal existence. Interviews with investigators. Gregory was charged with multiple felonies. His trial happened 8 months later. I attended every day. He was convicted on all counts. 8 years in prison. His portion of the inheritance was frozen, held pending civil suits from the people he owed money. My half was released. $6.25 million minus various legal fees and estate taxes. More money than I knew what to do with. Diana and I got engaged 3 months after the trial ended. We bought a house not too big in a neighborhood with good schools because she wanted kids someday. I went back to work part-time more to have structure than because I needed the money. But the part I am most proud of is the foundation. I used half my inheritance to establish a charitable fund in my parents' names. It helps people who get hurt traveling in foreign countries, medical bills, transport home, legal assistance, the kind of help I could have used in that village, the kind of help that might have prevented everything if it had existed sooner. I visited Gregory in prison once, 6 months into his sentence. He looked older, thinner. The visiting room smelled like disinfectant and defeat. We sat across from each other with a plastic table between us. He asked if I forgave him. I told him the truth. I did not forgive him, but I did not hate him either. Hate requires energy I did not want to spend. He had made his choices. Now he was living with them. We talked for 20 minutes about nothing important, the weather, how prison food compared to hospital food. When visiting hours ended, I stood to leave. He said, "Do you think we will ever be brothers again?" I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said, "We will always share blood. But family is more than that. Family is trust. You killed that." I walked out. I've not been back. These days, life is quieter. Diana and I got married last spring. Small ceremony. Close friends. Walter walked me down the aisle because he is the closest thing to family I have left. The foundation keeps me busy. We have helped 43 people so far. Every time I approve a grant, I think about the village that saved me. about Nira and her broken English and her kindness, about how strangers can be more family than blood sometimes. I think about Gregory, too. Not with anger anymore, just sadness for what could have been. For the brother who taught me to fish in Montana. For the version of us that died long before I ever got on that plane to Thailand. Someone asked me recently if I would do it all again. The travel, the accident, the betrayal, knowing what I know now. I said yes without hesitation. Not because I enjoyed any of it, but because it taught me something I needed to learn. Money changes people. Not everyone, but enough. And the real test of character is not what you do when everything is fine. It is what you do when everything falls apart and no one is watching. Gregory failed that test. I hope I passed it. Do you think family betrayal is something you can ever truly forgive? Could you have done what I did, or would you have confronted him sooner? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story made you think about trust and family in a new way, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you do not miss the next story. Thank you for listening to mine. Remember that sometimes the most valuable thing you inherit is not money. It is knowing who you are when everything is taken away. Take care of yourselves and the people who actually deserve your trust. Until next time.